In this video, we're going to talk about strings. So we've seen strings already in terms of strings as a variable type, okay? But now we're going to use strings as a data structure, okay? So that's kind of new for us. So let me go ahead and share a Google Colab window, and we can see an example of what I'm talking about. Okay. So we've had strings as a data type already. We're now going to talk about strings as a data structure. Okay, so again, we've seen strings. We can say name, if I can type, would be awesome. See what about. Okay, remember strings can be in either double quotes or single quotes, as long as you don't mix them. You know, that's okay. So if we were to print out here the type of name, okay, here in this, it will tell you that it is a in class string. Okay, so we've done that already, but now we're going to look at the idea of taking this string and using it much like we would use the other data structures we've talked about. Okay, so far we've talked about lists and tuples. Okay, so a data structure again is going to allow us to organize our data in a way that makes it easy to access. Okay, and the first step of this, something we haven't really done before, but just like we do with lists, we can get to the individual characters. Okay, so I can type, I can print out name bracket 0. Okay, when I do that, it gives me the B. Okay, and I can do that all the way up to 2, which gives me the small b. Okay, so just like with list, it starts with 0 for the index value, 1, and then 2. I just did a weird thing. You get the idea. Okay, so yeah, kind of paste didn't need to. Okay, so we can use this to our advantage. Okay, to store information and do things with it. Okay, to start with, we can do an iteration of this. Okay, most of the data structures we have, you're able to iterate. We could do this with a list. We could do it with tuples. We can do it with strings as well. So we can say for some variable, we typically use ch to refer to a character as part of the string, but we don't have to. In name, okay, then we can just print that. Right, that's all we have to do. If I do that, it's going to print each letter on its own line. Okay. Note, I could also, if I wanted, I could use a regular for loop. Okay, so I could say, for example, let's say for C in range, and here's something else, the length function works as well. Okay, then I can print name sub C. That should give us the same results. Okay, and it does. Okay, but using the iteration, the for n, you know, is a little more straightforward, a little cleaner, I think. So it's a better way to go. Okay. So just as you would imagine, if you try to get an index that you don't have, you're going to get an index out of range error. Okay, so if I were to say here, print, find the home keys, print name 5, okay, that doesn't exist. When I try, it's going to give me an index error, okay, the same error that we would get with a list or with a tuple or a tuple, whichever you prefer. Okay, so in order to check for that, whenever our program is using any kind of indexing, or we'll get to slicing here later, okay, you want to make sure that you are checking and handling that exception. Okay, in this case, we would have an except index error. Okay, and print something index out of range, whatever message you want. A little tab there, tab character to space it off from the rest of things. Okay, as long as you're at, it's a good idea to go ahead and put a generic exception. discover yourself. Okay. So now if I run this, you see instead of it blowing up with all that craziness on the screen, it's going to give me the error message that I asked for. Okay, the index out of range. Okay. It also means that, as we talked before with the chapter on exceptions, you could actually put that in a loop and ask them again for a value until you get a correct value. Okay, so you don't have to end it there. But your programs, remember, should never just blow up. Okay. So again, we can use the length function, the len function. We're using it here to make it more direct what we're doing here. So length is a function that takes various data structures. That includes strings. Okay, print that out, 3 at the bottom. Okay, so we've used len for list and for tuples. You can use it just the same for strings. Okay, so something else we always talk about here is string concatenation. And concatenation simply means just adding things together. Okay, so I'm going to here, if we have f name and we have l name equals Smith, because I'm very creative. Okay, I could then say something like name is equal to f name plus l name. And now we'll just combine those two together. Okay, this is probably not going to be exactly what we want, because when I print this, we're going to see that, as I said in the first day of class, programs, Python in particular, does exactly what you tell it to do. So I told it to put Bob and Smith together. Okay, issue being there's no space there. Okay, so I would have to actually go through when I'm creating this, okay, and do that. Okay, and this makes sense because f name is a string, l name is a string. This is a string also, right? So we can just keep adding strings to there, which is fine. Okay, which even means we can do pretty weird things, I think. We have print, we have a string. I think this works, it may not work. If it doesn't work, then I will say sorry. Yeah, I think I need a name there. That's not going to work because of the way print works. Oh, it worked. That's surprising to me. Yeah, so you can, because this string, I guess it's just treating it like it were a variable. I can get to the third letter of that. Yeah, that's weird. Don't do that. But yeah, just to show that that's a string. Okay, so when we're adding the strings together, that's what we're getting there. Okay, like tuples, strings are immutable. Okay, the strings being immutable means that I can't change individual parts, or I can't append to it. Okay, so there's not a string append anyway. It's not one of the string functions. But I can't say, let's say Bob's name is not really Bob. It's, I don't know, Sob. Okay, so I'm going to say f name sub 0 is equal to s. Okay, if I try to do that, it's going to give me a type error. Okay, can't do that. Okay, which means since there's that possibility of a type error, it's probably worth handling that error as well. Which we can just print something snarky if you like. Can't do that. That wasn't very snarky, but you get the idea. Okay. And I need, for parallelism here, I'm going to have this be the tab as well. Okay. So again, they're immutable. You can't do that. As I mentioned with tuples, it seems counterintuitive to me that you can do this, but it's perfectly okay. I can say first name is equal to Alice, and things are fine. Okay, it doesn't give me any issues at all. Because again, I'm not changing the string. It's immutable. I can't change it. By saying f name is equal to Alice, I am deleting the old and getting a new string. That's perfectly okay. Okay. So that's all legit. Okay. So The next thing that we can do, again, since this is a data type and we can get to individual characters, we can also do the string slicing like we've done before. Okay. So I can say, for example, print name. Let's say I want to start with the fourth character, so that's an index of 3, and go up through 6. And what's going to look like, but try and see. Okay. Doesn't like something. Do I not have 6? 1, 2, 3, 4. That should be okay. Oh, there's my problem. That was a different error, interestingly enough. It still doesn't like that. What doesn't it like? Oh, interesting. I don't know if you're spotting this or not. Because I've got an apostrophe there, single quote, I have to use double quotes. I'm glad that happened. That was a good lesson for us. When you get errors in your error correcting, that will work. Yeah. Okay. So we get the SM. So it turns out we have 0, 1, 2, 3 would start with a space. That would be 4, 5. And we don't include, remember this includes, starts with 3, end with 5. So 1 less than that. So that's, if you look, that would be, it's going to show it. Yeah, there should be a space SM there. Okay. So you can do slices, okay, which should come in handy. So remember on slicing, we have the beginning, the end. If I do this, this starts at the beginning and goes up through the 5th index or the 6th character. Okay. Or I could do this, which starts in the 3rd character and goes to the end. Okay. And again, that last number is a little weird, but as I said back when we were talking about lists and tuples, at least it's consistent. You know, that when anything we're doing a slice of is going to have that last number being the number bigger. It's going to stop before it gets to there. Okay. So I think that's important to remember. Okay. So the last thing that I want to do, I want to go through this example that's in our textbook, and it's on extracting characters from a string. Okay. So we'll go ahead and take a look at this program, and it has, get rid of that for now. Okay. And it has this other function it's going to define called get login name, which is going to take a first name, a last name, and some kind of ID number. Okay. And we'll have to call this from our main program eventually, but let's get this part out of the way first. Okay. And what we want to do, we want to get the first 3 letters, the first name. I want to say if less than 3 characters, 3 letters. Turn the entire. Okay. So we're going to do this. We're going to call this set 1 equals. Okay. So we've got the first is coming in. Okay. And with that first, we want to start at the beginning. Okay. So we can put a 0. We don't have to put a 0. And we want to go up 2 without including 3. So it's going to be 0, 1, and 2. Okay. Again, the 0 is redundant there. And again, we're building this login name by doing the first 3 letters of the first name, the first 3 letters of the last name, and the first 3 numbers of the ID. Okay. So we do the same thing for the last name. Yep. The first 3 letters of the last name. Okay. We call that set 2. Okay. Not sure why they're calling it set, but whatever. So that's going to be equal to last, starting with 0, going to 3. And if there's less than that, it's okay. It's not going to give us an error. Okay. Then we're going to get the first 3 numbers, or it could be characters, whatever, of the student ID. We don't know that's necessarily numbers. Okay. So that's our set 3 is going to be equal to the ID number. Okay. Oh, in this case, not the first 3. It gave us a twist I didn't see. It's the last 3. Okay. So with the last 3, we can use negative indexing. We've talked about that before with the list. If you want to get to the last element in the list, it would be -1. Okay. So to get the last 3, there's -1, -2, -3. So we're going to start with -3, and we're going to go to 0. Okay. So again, just to make sure that's clear, just as a note, if we have a string, hello there, bud, okay, for example, okay, going backwards, this is at -1. That's -2. That's -3. That's -4, and so forth. Okay. So that's how the negative slicing works. Okay. So now that we have the parts, we can just create the login name to be equal to set1 plus set2. We're concatenating these together, plus set3. Okay. Then we're going to return the login name. Okay. So then to call that function from main, we could ask for all that stuff, but in this case, let's just make it simple. Okay. I'm going to say ln for login name. Say name, it's fine. Name is equal to get login name. It's an the strings. Oh, I just did weird stuff. Don't know what I hit. Let's do Robert. So that's more characters. Smith, and they have an ID of now we're going to need this to be a string, so we can just send it as a string, even if it's a number. Let's say it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. If that were a number, we could always convert it into a string, but I don't think we need to do that. We can assume that it's all string. And again, the ID often will have letters in it as well. Okay. Then if I've done everything correctly, it's just be able to print the name, and it should return that. Okay. What should be ROB SMI 456. Okay. It doesn't like the last part, which is interesting. So let's take a look at that. So that's from here, coming in as ID number. Okay, so let's go ahead and print. Again, when I'm doing decode, or when I'm trying to debug it code, I'm going to put something odd in, so I'll be able to find it later. See what set3 is doing. Okay. Set3 is nothing. Why is set3 nothing? Oh, I don't want a 0 there. That's what the issue is. I want to go from, I was going around. I want to go from -3 to the end. Okay, so let's try to do. Yep, I've got correct. Okay. So we're going to deal with in the next video ways that we can turn this into all lowercase letters or all uppercase or whatever we want. But that's the basic idea. Okay. And now that I know what my issue was, I can go here and get rid of this. It's easy to find because it's got the 3 octacords. Okay. So that's it for strings, for this part at least. There are some string functions and functions that take strings that we'll talk about next time. Okay, but for this time, to review, we've used strings as variable types. Now we're going to use them as data structures. Okay, which in doing so, we're able to get to individual characters with a bracket. We're able to iterate with a for loop. Okay, for ch in string, print ch. Okay, go through all the letters individually, all the characters individually. We know that we always have to worry, and my program that I just wrote did not, and it should have. I didn't deal with my exceptions, but you can get an index error exception. Okay, when you're running this. Okay. The length function works. We'll talk about more functions that work next time. We can concatenate or add together strings. Okay, as many as we want. Strings are immutable. You can change the whole thing, but you can't change individual components. You can't add to the end, any of that stuff. Okay. We can slice a string just like we can slice a tuple or a list. Okay. And there's an example in our program of the negative numbers, which we talked about before, but just to reiterate that -1 is the last element and then -2 is the one going left from there. Okay. And then we did this little spotlight program that's from the book on extracting characters from a string to form a login name. Okay. So we'll stop it for there for this lecture. We'll go ahead and do an in-class assignment to get a better feel for this. And then we'll finish up strings in the next video. If you have any questions, as always, make sure you let me know.